Hey nappy friend, welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we are traveling back, way back, to a time of mist and peat, to the Iron Age in Northern Europe. We're going to step into the well-worn leather shoes of a person whose world was one of wood, wool, and whispers of the old gods. It was a life of profound connection to the seasons and the soil, but also one governed by beliefs that could lead to a very, very long sleep in a place much colder than your cozy bed. You probably wouldn't survive being a bog body, but tonight, you're perfectly safe and blissfully relaxed right here. So, before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? I'd also love to see where you're drifting off from tonight, so feel free to drop your city or country and the local time in the comments. It's always a quiet joy to see how far our little club reaches, so dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in Nappy community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. You are not woken by a sound, but by a change in the quality of the darkness. The deep, impenetrable black of night inside the longhouse has softened to a charcoal gray. A sliver of pale, pre-dawn light filters through the smoke hole in the thatched roof high above, illuminating a lazy, swirling column of dust motes and lingering smoke from last night's fire. The air is cold. It's a damp, biting cold that seeps into your bones. A stark contrast to the cocoon of warmth you've cultivated under a heavy wool blanket and a pile of animal pelts. You pull them tighter, burrowing for a few last moments of peace. There is no jarring alarm clock, no need to check your phone. Your internal clock is tied to the sun, and your first task is simply to exist in this slow, quiet awakening. The first true sound you register is the soft, rhythmic chewing of a cow. It comes from the far end of the longhouse, the space designated for the precious livestock that survived the winter with you. Humans on one side of the central hearth, animals on the other. It's a well-established fact of life in your world. This cohabitation, the warmth from their bodies helps heat the immense wooden structure, and their soft noises are as familiar and comforting as the breathing of your own family sleeping nearby. The aroma, a unique blend of wood smoke, damp earth, sleeping bodies, and livestock, is something no modern perfumer would ever dare to bottle, yet to you, it is simply the smell of home. You can hear the gentle rustle of your kin, the soft sighs and murmurs of dreams beginning to fade as the village stirs slowly. You push yourself up, the first slide away, and the cold air rushes to greet your skin. You are laying, your tunic, woven from coarse, undyed wool, lies folded beside your sleeping spot. You pull it over your head, its familiar scratchiness a part of your daily texture. As your eyes adjust, the vastness of your home takes shape. Great oak posts, thicker than your body, march down the center of the hall. Their surfaces blackened by generations of soot. They hold up a ceiling of woven branches and a thick layer of thatch, a dark, protective sky of its own. In the very center of the earthen floor is the heart of your world, the long fire pit. Its embers still glow a faint, pulsating orange. It is here that you notice the first unusual thing about this day. Turan, the chieftain, is already awake. He isn't moving about, giving orders, or preparing for the day. He is sitting on a low stool, staring into the dying embers, his broad back to the rest of the longhouse. His silence is a heavy blanket, more potent than the woolen one you just discarded. Usually, the mornings are filled with the low hum of conversation, plans for mending the palisade, tending the fields, or checking the fishing weirs. Today, an unspoken command for quiet seems to emanate from the chieftain's still form. People are waking, yes, but they move with a deliberate slowness, their eyes flicking towards Turan, then away again, as if afraid to be caught watching. An elder, a woman named Morwen whose face is a roadmap of seasons past, moves carefully to the hearth. She doesn't use a flint and steel, but carefully takes a glowing ember with a pair of wooden tongs and places it into a bed of dry moss and kindling she prepared the night before. She blows gently, her breath a prayer, and a tiny flame flickers to life as the new fire catches. Smoke begins its slow, upward spiral towards the hole in the roof. You watch it, and you know Turan is watching it too. Some believe you can read the day's fortune in the patterns of the first smoke. It's a subtle art, a form of folk magic almost forgotten by official histories. which tend to focus on grander ceremonies. They debate whether the smoke's curl predicts a good hunt or a coming storm, a birth or a loss. Today, the smoke seems to hang in the air, reluctant to leave the confines of the longhouse, clinging to the rafters like a hesitant spirit. It feels like an omen, though for what? You cannot say. You slide your feet into your simple leather shoes, the hide worn soft. From use, you move through the sprawling, communal space. Historians centuries from now will debate the precise social mapping of these longhouses. They will argue whether sleeping arrangements were dictated by strict family hierarchy, with the chieftain's kin nearest the fire, or if the layout was more fluid, changing with seasons and personal relationships. You know only your own small patch of earth, the space that is yours by custom, nestled between your siblings and cousins. As you pass other sleeping bays, you see faces you've known your entire life, yet this morning they seem like strangers. There's a guarded look in their eyes, a tension in their jaws. You reach the heavy wooden door and push it open just enough to slip outside. The air is a shock clean, crisp, and tasting of pine and wet earth. A thick white mist blankets your entire settlement, clinging to the sharpened tops of the wooden defensive walls and muffling all sound. It's as if the world beyond your village has disappeared, swallowed by a silent, white sea. It's beautiful, in a haunting sort of way. You can hear the distant bleating of a sheep, but the sound is distorted, seeming to come from all directions. At once, the world is normal, and yet nothing feels right. The unease from inside the longhouse has followed you out here, amplified by the disorienting fog. Returning inside, the smoky warmth envelops you again. Morwen, the elder, catches your eye. Her expression is not unkind, but it holds a depth of sorrow and resolve that chills you more than the morning mist. She gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod towards the chieftain, who has finally risen from the hearth. He turns, and his gaze sweeps across the waking members of the tribe. It doesn't feel like the look of a leader addressing his people. It feels like he is searching for someone. His eyes pass over faces, lingering for a moment, then moving on. The collective breath of the longhouse is held, and then his eyes find you. They stop in his gaze. You see the weight of the reluctant smoke, the chill of the morning mist, and the heavy burden of a decision already made. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. Morwen takes a slow step towards you, her hand outstretched, not to grab, but to guide, and you know, with a certainty that settles deep in your gut, that this day is for you. Asterisk. You do not resist as Morwen's dry, warm hand gently rests on your arm. There is no struggle, no scream lodged in your throat. A strange, unnerving calm has settled over you, a quiet acceptance that feels as thick and insulating as the morning mist. You are led towards the central hearth, the very heart of the longhouse, now blazing with a respectful, steady fire. The others, your family, your friends, the people who taught you to fish and weave and sing, part silently to let you pass. Their eyes are on you, but they are not eyes of judgment or anger. They are filled with a complex mixture of awe, pity, and a profound, shared sorrow. It feels as if you are already walking in a different world, separated from them by an invisible veil. A space has been cleared for you on the earthen floor, right before the fire. A freshly woven reed mat, its green antan pattern crisp and new, has been laid down. This is a place of honor, usually reserved for visiting dignitaries or the most sacred rituals. You have never been permitted to sit here before. Morwen gestures for you to sit, and you fold your legs beneath you, the rough texture of the mat pressing into your woolen trousers. The heat from the fire warms your face, a stark contrast to the persistent chill at your back. You sit there, the silent focus of every person in your world, and wait. The silence is no longer just an absence of sound. It has become a presence in itself. It's a silence so dense and heavy, you feel it could be used to patch the thatch in the roof, keeping out the rain and the rest of the world. After a moment that stretches into an eternity, Morwen returns. She carries a small, unadorned clay bowl, dark and functional. She kneels before you, her old joints creaking softly, and places it in your hands. You look down. Inside is a thick, brownish gray porridge. It is not the creamy, comforting oat mash you sometimes enjoy on a cold morning. This is dark, gritty, and uninviting. There are no berries, no honey, no touch of joy in this meal. It looks like it was scraped from the very earth itself. This is certainly not the breakfast of champions you might have idly wished for. You are handed a spoon carved from horn, worn smooth with use. As you lift the first spoonful, the aroma reaches you. It is bitter, earthy, and overwhelmingly seedy. You take a bite. The texture is rough and grainy, a dense mixture of crushed kernels and husks that scratch your tongue and palate. You can identify the taste of barley, the staple of your people, but it's buried under a host of other flavors. There are tiny, oily seeds that pop unpleasantly between your teeth flaps. You think in a background bitterness from countless other wild seeds gathered from the wetlands and the edges of the fields. It is, you realize, the food of survival, the food of the leanest parts of winter, made from whatever could be swept up from the storeroom floor. As you methodically eat, spoon after silent spoon, a question forms in your mind. Why this meal? The great minds of the future will debate this very question when they analyze the contents of your miraculously preserved stomach. They will argue whether it was simply a typical meal for a person of your station, indicating that you were an ordinary soul chosen for this fate, or they will posit that it was a deeply symbolic, ritualistic concoction, that each of the dozens of types of seeds within it, from the hardy barley to the humble weed, represented a prayer for fertility, a connection to the whole of the plant world. Was this meal a symbol of your lowliness, or a microcosm of the entire harvest, a powerful offering in its own right? You do not know the answer. You know only the grit and the bitterness, and the feeling that every bite is drawing you further away from the world of the living. You glance up for a moment and see the faces in the semi-darkness. They watch your every move. No one else is eating. No one speaks. Your solitary meal is the only event happening in the universe. Your mind drifts to another offering, one made last autumn. Several men from the village had hauled a massive wooden tub, filled with precious butter, to the edge of the bog and sunk it into the peat, a gift, they had said, to appease the spirits below, to ensure the ground would remain fertile and the waters clean, a gift for the soil, Morwen had called it. That butter, which would become a strange curiosity known as bog butter to future archaeologists who debated whether it was for storage or ritual, was an offering. And as you swallow another mouthful of gritty porridge, you understand. The butter was a gift of fat and wealth. This meal is a gift of seeds and soil. And you are the vessel for that gift. It would be a terrible breach of etiquette to complain about the food now, you suppose. A small, ironic thought that flickers and dies almost instantly. You focus on the task, on finishing the bowl. It feels incredibly important to leave nothing behind. This is your final contribution, your last act of consumption in this world. When the spoon finally scrapes against the rough clay of the empty bowl, the sound is unnaturally loud in the cavernous silence. It echoes for a heartbeat, a definitive, percussive end. You have finished. You place the empty bowl on the mat before you. Morwen takes it with the same reverence she brought it with. You are then handed a simple wooden cup of cool water, which you drink gratefully, washing away the last of the grainy residue. Now, Turan, the chieftain, finally moves. He steps forward, his heavy frame blocking the light of the fire. He stands before you, and the entire tribe seems to lean in, waiting. He places a large, calloused hand on your shoulder. The gesture is not one of compassion, but of grim, official purpose. His voice, when he speaks, is a low rumble, meant only for you. The land thirsts. Lane, he says, his gaze fixed on something far beyond you. Go well, be our voice to the ones below. He removes his hand. The ceremony of the final meal is over. You rise to your feet, feeling lightheaded but steady. You are no longer just Lane. You are a messenger, an offering, a seed ready to be planted. You turn away from the fire, the heart of the human world, and face the door, the portal to the mist and the great, quiet bog that awaits you. You follow Turan and Morwen out of the longhouse and into the day. The mist has not fully burned off. It lingers in great, soft swathes, turning the familiar outlines of your village into a landscape of ghosts. The entire tribe stands in silent witness, their forms huddled together for a warmth that is more than physical. They are a silent, unmoving forest of wool and sorrow. They do not follow. This next path is not for them. Your procession is small, an island of solemn purpose moving through the quiet village. It's you, Turan walking before you, his shoulders set like a bulwark against the world, and Morwen at your side, her presence a strange mix of comfort and doom. A few paces behind walk two of the village's strongest men, their faces grimly neutral, their hands empty but their purpose clear. This is a far cry from the laughing, chattering groups that usually head out to gather firewood or check the snares. There's a formality here, a ritualistic pacing that makes every step feel heavy. You pass the last of the Daw Bandwaddle huts, skirt the edge of the small, precious barley field, its young shoots a vibrant, hopeful green that feels like a painful irony. You walk by the copse of hazel trees where you spent countless autumn days as a child. Your fingers stained with nut husk juice, every landmark is a quiet farewell. The air is still. The only sounds the soft tread of your leather shoes on the damp earth and the distant, lonely cry of a curlew. Its mournful call seeming to echo the feeling in your own chest. The world of humanity, with its fires, its arguments, and its laughter, is receding behind you with every step. Soon, the solid ground softens. The familiar earth gives way to a spongy, yielding carpet of deep green and rust-red sphagnum moss. Pools of dark, stagnant water, the color of strongly brewed tea, lie still and silent between hummocks of peat. Before you lies the bog, a vast, breathing entity that marks the edge of your people's domain. And stretching out across its seemingly impassable surface is a testament to your tribe's ingenuity and will, a narrow path of wooden planks. This is the trackway, the umbilical cord that connects your village to the resources and the mysteries. Hidden deep within the marsh, Duran steps onto the first plank without hesitation, and you follow. The wood is slick with dew and algae, and you place your feet carefully. The trackway is a remarkable thing, a well-established fact of Iron Age life that future archaeologists will marvel at. It is built of split oak planks laid across a foundation of birch branches, all held in place by sharpened posts driven deep into the peat below. It's narrow, barely wide enough for two people to pass, and it snakes its way into the misty distance. This path is life. It allows for the gathering of bog iron, the metallic lifeblood of your tools and weapons. It leads to the best spots for harvesting reeds for thatch and baskets, and it leads, you now know, to the places of sacrifice. As you walk, your footsteps a dull, hollow rhythm on the planks, you ponder the nature of this road. Scholars thousands of years from now will hold a long and quiet debate about the purpose of these constructions. Were they purely utilitarian, the Iron Age equivalent of a highway, designed simply to get from A to B across treacherous terrain? Or were they primarily ceremonial, ritual causeways built at enormous cost and effort to approach sacred sites? Their very construction an act of devotion, walking it now, with the chieftain ahead of you and your fate pulling you forward. The answer seems obvious. It is both, but today, it is not a highway for commerce. It is a sacred isle. The builders who sunk these posts into the peat probably didn't imagine their work serving as a kind of final walk of fame for someone like you, but the solemnity of your procession gives it that undeniable feel. The further you venture into the bog, the more the world changes. The last sounds of the village are completely gone, swallowed by the immense quiet. The air itself feels different, heavier, ancient, and filled with the unique, sweet and sour scent of decay and preservation. You are surrounded by a landscape that is both beautiful and deeply alien. Tiny, carnivorous sundew plants glitter along the edges of the path, their sticky tentacles curled in wait for unsuspecting insects. Tufts of white bodcotton nod in the gentle breeze like spirits of the marsh. The water on either side is so dark and still that it reflects the gray sky with perfect, unnerving clarity. When you glance down, you see your own face staring back, a distorted, wavering stranger with eyes full of a quiet you don't recognize. You notice that in older sections of the trackway, the wood is different. The newer planks are the pale color of fresh split oak, but the older ones, the ones that have been here for generations, are a deep, profound black. The wood has been transformed by the bog, saturated with its acidic, oxygen-poor water. It has become bogwood, unnaturally hard and preserved, almost fossilized. It doesn't look like it's rotting. It looks like it has been infused with the very essence of the bog's timeless, changeless nature. It's a physical reminder of the bog's power to hold things, to stop time, to change the very substance of what it touches. You are walking on wood that the bog has already claimed, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that you are next. After what feels like an age of rhythmic walking and silent contemplation, the trackway widens slightly and ends. You have arrived at a small, circular island of relatively firm ground, a natural clearing in the vast wetland. It's no larger than the inside of the chieftain's hut, a tiny stage surrounded by the deep, dark, silent water of the bog pools. This is it, the end of the path. The air here is perfectly still. The wind that whispered through the reeds seems to have died down, holding its breath. Morwen gently guides you to the center of the small island. Duran turns to face you, his expression unreadable. The two men who followed you stand silently at the edge of the trackway, their purpose now feeling terribly imminent. The journey is over. You stand in the heart of the gateway to the other world. Take one last, deep breath of the damp, peaty air, and wait. You stand in the center of the small peat island, a stage surrounded by the dark, reflective audience of the bog pools. The air is so still you can hear the faint hum in your own ears. Morwen, the elder, steps toward you, her movements slow and deliberate. Filled with the gravity of ancient custom, she reaches out, not with force, but with a gentle, undeniable authority. Her gnarled fingers carefully unpan the simple bronze brooch that fastens the collar of your tunic. The metal is cold against her skin for a moment, before she tucks it away into a leather pouch at her belt. Metal, you understand, has no place in this final transaction. It is a thing of human fire and artifice, and you are about to be given over entirely to the natural world. Next, she holds up a cap. It is conical, pieced together from several sections of sheepskin and stitched with fine sinew. It is almost identical to the one you wear for warmth in the winter. Yet this one feels different. It is new. It is an object made for this single, specific moment. She places it on your head, pulling it down snugly over your ears. It feels less like a piece of clothing and more like a crown, a formal marker of your transition from a person into a principle. It is the uniform of the messenger. Turan, the chieftain, gives a solemn nod. One of the two men who followed you now steps forward. In his hands, he does not hold a club or a spear. He carries a length of braided leather cord, dark and supple. He holds it almost reverently, stretched between his two hands as if displaying a treasure. You look at it and see the fine, even braiding, the small, expertly tied loop at one end. This was not a thing made in haste. It is a work of craftsmanship, an object imbued with purpose and, in its own way, a dark beauty. He stops before you and holds it out. There is no menace in his posture. This is not an attack. It is the next step in the ceremony. You look past him, at Turan, at Morwen, and you see no hatred. You see only a deep, painful necessity. Your mind is strangely clear, a calm pool that reflects the gray sky above. There is no panic, no desperate urge to flee. Centuries from now, learned people will gaze upon your preserved form and debate your final moments. They will argue endlessly whether you were a terrified criminal being brutally executed, your face, a mask of agony, or if you were a willing participant, a believer going to your God. In this moment, you provide the answer. There is no terror. There is only a vast, quiet sense of purpose. You remember the chieftain's words, "Be our voice." You are the vessel for your people's hope, the ultimate appeal to the powers that dwell in the water and the earth. You are not dying in disgrace. You are being sent on the most important journey imaginable. The man gently places the braided cord around your neck. It is cool and smooth against your skin. You close your eyes. You do not feel the hands of an executioner, but the hands of a priest guiding you through the final doorway. The loop is tightened, not with a sudden, violent jerk, but with a slow, steady pressure. The world of sound begins to fade, replaced by the rushing of blood in your ears. Your breath catches. You are tethered to the world of air, the realm of the sky gods, for one final moment. Then, as your consciousness begins to fray at the edges, you feel yourself being lifted. The strong arms of the men on either side of you are gentle as they guide you from the solid ground of the peat island to the water's edge. They do not throw you, they lower you. This is the second part of the offering, a detail that some future scholars might theorize as part of a symbolic threefold death, an offering to the gods of the sky, the earth, and the water all at once. The pressure of the cord is your tribute. To the air, the firm, final touch of Turan's hand upon your chest as you are submerged is your link to the world of men, and earth, and the water. The water is for the powerful beings below. The cold is a silent, instantaneous shock that banishes the last of your thoughts. It is a deep, penetrating cold that seems to seep directly into your bones. But it is not violent. It is a quiet, final embrace. The world of light and air, the gray sky, the soft green of the moss, the stoic faces of your people, it all dissolves into a swirling, murky brown. You are sinking, slowly, weightlessly, through the dark tea-colored water. There is no struggle. There is only a great and final release, a letting go of the world above. The bog begins its timeless work at once. The intense cold halts the natural processes of your body, placing them in immediate stasis. The unique chemistry of the water, rich in tannins from the decaying peat and devoid of oxygen, begins to saturate your skin, your clothes, your very being. It is an acidic bath that will prevent the bacteria of decay from ever taking hold. The sphagnum moss, the living architect of the bog, slowly settles around you, releasing even more preserving compounds, wrapping you in a gentle, antiseptic shroud. You are not rotting. You are becoming an artifact. You are being pickled in time itself. Your journey ends as your body comes to rest on a soft bed of peat at the bottom of the pool. The faint light from the surface is gone, and you are cocooned. In perfect darkness and silence, the ritual is complete. The offering has been made and accepted. Above you, the surface of the water stills, once again becoming a perfect, dark mirror for the sky. Your people will turn and walk the long path back to their world of fire and life. But you will remain. You have entered the peat's cold, quiet embrace, beginning a slumber that will last for 2.5 millennia, waiting for the day when you will be found, a perfect, peaceful face from a long-lost world. Time, as you once understood it, has ceased to exist. There is no dawn that follows dusk, no rhythm of work and rest. The cycle of seasons, which once governed every aspect of your life, is now a distant abstraction, a story happening in a world you no longer inhabit. You are suspended in a place where the only tense is the present. You are resting. You are waiting. You are becoming eternal. Your sleep is deeper than any you have ever known. A profound stillness in the heart of the bog's cold, quiet cradle. Above you, the world rushes on. But down here, in the silent, amber-tinted water, time itself holds its breath. The bog's magic is not one of sudden spells, but of slow, relentless chemistry. It is a trinity of forces working in perfect, silent harmony to grant you a strange and lasting form of immortality. The first element is the cold. The deep water of the bog pool is a natural refrigerator, maintaining a low, constant temperature that discourages the very notion of decay. It is a cold that leaches the warmth from any living thing, slowing the dance of microscopic life to an almost complete stop. It is the great pause button of the natural world. The second element is the profound lack of air. The bacteria and fungi, the tiny, hungry mouths of decomposition that would normally feast upon flesh and bone, are creatures of oxygen. They need it to breathe, to work, to break down the complex into the simple. But here, in the dense, stagnant water and the tightly packed layers of peat, there is no oxygen to be had. You are in an anaerobic sanctuary, a sealed chamber where the agents of decay cannot survive. You are protected from the gnawing hunger of the world, but the true alchemist of your preservation, the master ingredient, is the bog itself, or more precisely, the living carpet of sphagnum moss that creates it. This humble plant is a powerful environmental engineer. As it grows, it releases compounds into the water, particularly a substance later generations will call sphagnin. This makes the water highly acidic, creating a pH level similar to that of vinegar. You are, in the gentlest way imaginable, being pickled. This acidic bath is the secret to your longevity. It is the most effective spa treatment ever devised, though its beautifying effects do take a rather long time to become apparent. Your skin, saturated with these acids and tannins from the peat, begins to change. It is undergoing a slow, natural tanning process. Future scientists will theorize about the exact nature of this transformation, debating the role of the Maillard reaction, a browning process akin to toasting bread, versus other complex chemical pathways. For you, it is simply an imperceptible shift as your skin darkens, toughens, and becomes as durable and permanent as expertly cured leather. You are receiving a better conditioning treatment than the chieftain's most prized leather tunic. Yet, this remarkable preservation comes at a cost. The bog is a jealous guardian, and it demands a trade. The same acid that so perfectly preserves your skin, your hair, and the faint stubble on your chin wages a slow, silent war against your bones. Calcium, the very substance that gives your skeleton its strength and rigidity, dissolves in the acidic water. Over the slow procession of the years, your strong frame, the scaffolding of your life, begins to soften. The hard, unyielding bone decalcifies, becoming pliable and rubbery like cartilage, or in some places, disappearing entirely. You have traded the strength of bone for the permanence of skin. You are becoming a hollow vessel, a perfect leather impression of a human being. Your final expression held intact while the solid structure within you surrenders to the bog's chemistry. Centuries drift by like motes of dust in a sunbeam. Above you, the Roman eagle soars over lands to the south, its legions forging an empire whose existence you could never fathom. They build roads of stone, while the wooden trackway your people so carefully maintained slowly rots and sinks. Swallowed by the ever-growing peat, new people arrive in your land, speaking a language you would not understand, worshipping gods you would not recognize. They might even walk the bog's edge, feeling a sacred chill. unaware of the ancient sleeper resting just beneath the surface of the dark water. The little ice age descends, and for long, dark winters, the surface of your pool freezes solid, entombing you under a ceiling of ice. Then it thaws, and the cycle continues. Seasons blur into decades, decades into centuries. The world is remade by war, by faith, by invention, but none of it touches you. You remain in your timeless sanctuary, a human capsule sealed away from the ravages of time. Your leather cap is still perfectly in place. The braided cord is still resting gently around your neck, its purpose fulfilled. You are no longer Lane, the person of flesh and blood. You are now the Tolland man, the Graubale man, the Linda woman and archetype, an artifact of leather and memory. You are a secret the bog keeps, resting in a place where time has forgotten how to tread, waiting patiently for a new world to find you. Your slumber is not interrupted by a sound, but by a subtle shift in pressure. For more than 2 millennia, the weight of the peat above you has been a constant, gentle blanket. Now, something changes. A rhythmic, slicing vibration shudders through your timeless world. It is a sound your ears, now perfectly preserved but deaf, cannot register. Yet you feel it as a strange and novel intrusion. It is the sound of a spade, sharp and metallic, cutting through the layers of your long sleep. Then, after an eternity of perfect darkness, a sliver of light pierces your quiet cocoon. The light is pale, the watery sunlight of a Danish spring, morning in the middle of the 20th century. Two brothers, Vigio and Emil Heigard, are cutting peat for fuel, a task their ancestors have performed in this very bog for generations. Their spade strikes something soft, thinking it's a forgotten tree root. One of them cuts again, more carefully this time. The peat falls away, and there you are. Your slumber is over. They stop, spades frozen in midair. They are not looking at a skeleton or the misshapen form of decay. They are looking at a face. It is the face of a man, dark brown and leathery, but undeniably human, with eyes gently closed as if in peaceful sleep. The faint stubble on your chin is visible, and your lips are pursed in a serene, thoughtful expression. The leather cap is still perched perfectly on your head. You look as if you only lay down for a nap a few hours ago. Their shock quickly curdles into a very modern, 20th century fear. They do not think of ancient rituals or Iron Age sacrifices. Their minds leap to a recent, local tragedy, a schoolboy from Copenhagen who had gone missing in the area. They believe they have stumbled upon a crime scene. This poor soul, they think, must be him. They carefully lay down their tools, their faces pale with a mixture of horror and grim determination. One of them makes his way back across the bog on trembling legs to find a telephone, a device as alien to your world as a flying chariot. They are calling the police soon. The ancient silence of the bog is broken by new sounds, the crunch of heavy rubber boots on the trackway, the low growl of an automobile engine, and the clipped, professional tones of modern Danish. The police from the nearby town of Silkeborg have arrived. They approach the site with the somber gravity of a homicide investigation, cordoning off the area and treating your resting place as a contemporary crime scene. A constable, notebook in hand, meticulously records the details, asking the brothers pointed questions. The lead detective, a man accustomed to solving crimes that are, at most, a few decades old, finds himself utterly stumped. The clues don't add up. The preservation is too perfect, too strange. He kneels down, peering at the braided leather cord around your neck, his mind searching for a logical, modern explanation that simply isn't there. He is, in a wonderfully ironic twist, trying to solve a murder where the trail went cold around the time the Roman Republic was just beginning to flex its muscles. One of the officers, perhaps more familiar with the bog's strange reputation, or simply possessing a more active imagination, suggests calling in an expert of a different kind. The preservation is too unusual, the location too remote, the detective out of options. Agrees. A second phone call is made, this time to the Aarhus Museum. The man who answers is Professor Peter Wilhelm Glob, a renowned archaeologist and an expert on the prehistoric cultures of the region. When Professor Glob arrives, the atmosphere at the scene shifts. He moves with a quiet, academic reverence, his eyes filled not with suspicion, but with a look of profound and ecstatic wonder. He kneels beside you, ignoring the police officers and their notebooks. He does not see a victim. He sees a miracle. He sees a messenger, not from a recent crime, but from a lost epoch. His gaze takes in the leather cap, the serene face, the cord. Then, his expert eye turns to your surroundings. He looks at the layers of peat from which you were exhumed here. The academic debate of the age comes to the forefront. Long before the widespread use of radiocarbon dating, archaeologists relied on a science called palynology, the study of pollen. Glob knew that the peat was a perfect archive of botanical history, trapping microscopic pollen grains season after season, year after year. By analyzing the pollen signature in the peat layer directly around your body, he could identify the types of plants that were dominant at the time of your burial. He sees the signature of the Iron Age landscape without a single piece of modern dating technology. He knows. He stands up, turns to the baffled police detective, and calmly informs him that he can call off his investigation. The perpetrator, he might have said with a dry, academic wit, is long gone. Your case is not for the police, but for the historians. The process of moving you is now one of archaeological care, not forensic recovery. A great, heavy block of peat containing your entire upper body is carefully excavated around you, ensuring that you remain nestled in the very earth that preserved you for so long. The block is encased in a wooden crate, a strange new coffin, for a man who has slept without one for 2.5 millennia. You are lifted from your sanctuary, leaving the cold, quiet embrace of the bog for the first time. You are blinking, in a metaphorical sense, in the bright, noisy, and incomprehensibly complex world of post-war Europe. Your long, peaceful slumber has been irrevocably interrupted, and your journey, it turns out, is not yet over. You lie now in a climate-controlled glass case, an object of intense curiosity and quiet contemplation. The air around you is dry, sterile, and unchanging. The faces that peer down at you are illuminated by soft, electric light. They see your leathery skin, your peaceful expression, your leather cap, and they all ask the same, silent, profound question. Why? Why would a people, your people, commit such a solemn, final act? To understand the answer, we must leave this quiet, modern museum. We must step back into your mind, into your world, and look upon the landscape not as geography, but as theology. The reason for your fate lies not in an act of violence, but in an act of faith. And the object of that faith was the bog itself. To your people, the bog was not a wasteland. In a world where land was valued for its ability to grow crops or graze livestock, the bog was seen by outsiders as useless. But your people knew better. The most valuable real estate, in a spiritual sense, was the land that was most unusable. The bog was a place that belonged to no single category. It was a living paradox. It was not solid ground, for it could swallow a man without a trace. It was not open water, for it was choked with reeds and mosses and hidden islands. It was a liminal space, a sacred concept to the Celtic and Germanic mind. These places, bogs, misty coastlines, the mouths of rivers were seen as powerful because they existed on the thresholds. They were neither this nor that. They were the seams of the world, the places where the veil between your earthly realm and the mysterious other world was thin, frayed, and permeable. Imagine seeing it through your eyes. On a summer's day, it could be deceptively beautiful, with the bog cotton nodding like a field of snowy down and the sundew plants glittering like jewels. But you were never fooled. You knew its true nature. You knew how the ground could tremble under your feet, a thin crust of life over an abyss of cold, brown water. You knew how the thick evening mists could roll in without warning, erasing the horizon and turning the most familiar path into a disorienting labyrinth. Sound behaved differently here. A shout would be swallowed by the damp air, while the snap of a twig could sound unnervingly close. This wasn't just a challenging environment. It was a landscape designed to inspire a deep and abiding awe. It was a place that constantly reminded you of your own smallness, of the precariousness of your own world, and you had proof that this place was inhabited by spirits. On moonless nights, you and your kin would see them, strange, pale lights, flickering and dancing out over the darkest parts of the marsh. A single, ghostly flame would appear, hover, and then dart away, pursued by another. You called them Willow, the wisps, the lights of the Fae, the souls of the unquiet dead. You didn't need a future science to explain them away as the product of oxidizing marsh gas. Your eyes did not deceive you. You saw what you saw, the tangible, visible evidence of the other world leaking into yours. These lights were the spirits of the bog, and their presence confirmed everything you believed. They proved that this was not dead land. It was supernaturally alive. Your people didn't need storytellers to invent horror tales. A quiet walk by the bog's edge at twilight was thrilling enough. The gods who received your offering were as mysterious as the bog itself. Historians and archaeologists would later debate their identities, trying to fit them into the known pantheons of the Celts and Germans. Was it a god of war, a goddess of fertility? But for you, the identity was both simpler and more complex. You may not have had a single, convenient name for the deity that resided here. The power in the bog was elemental, chthonic, a force that rose from the earth and the water itself. You called them the ones below, or the keepers of the fen, names spoken with a respectful whisper. These were not distant sky gods who threw thunderbolts from on high. These were intimate, terrestrial powers whose pleasure or displeasure could be felt in the fertility of your soil, the health of your livestock, and the outcome of your battles. Their communication style was, to put it mildly, a bit cryptical, mist and flickering lights. No easy-to-read instruction manual, because this place was a liminal threshold, visibly haunted by spirits and ruled by these powerful, nameless entities. You knew it to be a gateway. It was a literal doorway between the worlds. If you needed to communicate with the forces that governed fate, if you needed to ask for a bountiful harvest after a long winter, if you needed to appease a power that felt angered by some transgression, you couldn't just shout your prayer at the sky. That was inefficient. You had to go to the portal. You had to make your deposit directly. You had to place your offering into the hands of the gatekeepers. And so, we return to you. You were not thrown into a swamp to dispose of a problem. You were placed, with reverence and ceremony, into a sacred portal. Your final meal of seeds was not just sustenance, but a symbolic offering of the earth's bounty. The cord around your neck was not just an instrument of death, but a conduit to the spirit world. You were the ultimate gift, a human messenger, sent across the threshold with a plea from your people. It was the most profound act of faith your tribe could conceive of. The bog was a hungry and powerful neighbor. It demanded respect. It demanded tribute. And in a time of great need, it demanded the most precious thing you had to give, a human life, sent as a messenger through the gateway to the other world. As you rest in your sterile, silent display, you represent the most profound offering your people could make. But you were not an isolated gift. You were the culmination of a long and deeply ingrained tradition of giving to the bog. To understand your own journey, one must understand the hundreds, even thousands, of other objects that were sent on the same one-way trip into the dark, peaty water. The bog was your people's cathedral, but it was also their vault, a place where they deposited their greatest treasures, their most potent symbols, and their deepest fears. You were not alone in the dark. Imagine the bog floor as a vast, submerged museum, its collection curated by centuries of faith in one area. A future archaeologist's trowel might uncover a staggering arsenal of weapons, dozens of iron swords, scores of spearheads, and the ornate metal bosses from long disintegrated wooden shields, all clustered together. Seeing such a hoard, the modern mind immediately thinks of war. This is the central debate that will occupy scholars for decades. Are these caches of weapons the spoils of a great victory? Did your tribe, after defeating a rival clan, gather all their enemies' armaments and offer them to the gods in a magnificent gesture of thanks? Or is the truth something even more profound? Could it be that in a time of desperate crisis, a famine, a plague, a looming invasion, your people sacrificed their own finest weapons, giving away their very means of defense in a last, desperate plea for divine intervention? The answer is lost to time. But either scenario reveals a people who believed the gods took a keen interest in the affairs of war. What is certain, however, is the strange condition of these offerings. The weapons were not simply tossed into the water. They were ritually killed. A magnificent iron sword, a masterpiece of the blacksmith's art and a warrior's most prized possession, would be heated and then bent into a useless S shape, or even tied into an impossible knot. A spear would have its shaft snapped and its iron head blunted. A shield would be systematically hacked to pieces. This was not the random damage of battle. It was a deliberate, methodical deconstruction. The belief underpinning this practice was fundamental. For an object to pass from the world of the living to the spirit realm, its physical form had to be broken. Its earthly purpose had to be nullified to release its essence. Its spirit, the gods, it seems, had a no-take-backs policy, and this ensured the gift was permanent. They weren't interested in the functional object, but in its soul. But the bog's treasury was not limited to the tools of conflict. Elsewhere on the peat floor lay the symbols of community and prosperity. Great cauldrons of bronze and silver, large enough for several men to sit in, have been found, sometimes whole, but more often carefully disassembled. Their ornate plates, stacked neatly before being submerged in your world. The cauldron was the heart of the community. It was from the cauldron that the feast was served, the ale was ladled, and the bonds of kinship were forged around the fire. To sacrifice a cauldron was to give away the very vessel of your social life, an offering of unimaginable significance. It was like giving away the communal hearth itself. Alongside these spectacular treasures were more humble, yet equally telling, deposits. Simple farming tools, like a wooden ard or plow, have been found, perhaps a prayer for the fertility of the fields. Exquisite pieces of pottery, deliberately broken, rest near animal bones from a sacrificed feast. And then there is one of the most curious offerings of all, bog butter. Future generations will find massive quantities of butter or animal fat, some weighing over 100 pounds, packed into wooden containers or wrapped in animal hides and buried deep in the peat. At first, they will argue that this was simply a practical matter, that the bog was a form of primitive refrigeration for preserving food. But the sheer scale of some deposits, and their context alongside clearly ritual objects, suggests something. More fat was wealth, it was energy, it was life. Offering a huge reserve of it to the bog was a potent gift of sustenance to the chthonic powers below. While a modern society might bury a time capsule with letters and photographs, your people knew what held true, lasting value, a massive cache of life-sustaining calories. All of these offerings, the bent sword, the broken cauldron, the barrel of butter, provide the context for you. Your sacrifice was not a bizarre anomaly. It was the ultimate expression of the very same belief system. If a sword had to be bent to release its spirit, if a cauldron had to be broken to enter the other world, then it followed that a human messenger required a ritualized death to cross the same threshold. The gentle pressure of the cord around your neck was the equivalent of bending the sword. Your descent into the water was the same journey taken by the pieces of the great cauldron. You are the most personal, the most poignant, and the most powerful of all the gifts your people gave to the bog. You are the human face of a tradition that saw no difference between the soul of a warrior and the soul of his weapon. Both ultimately belonged to the gods who dwelt in the mist. The decision that sealed your fate, the one that ended your life in the Iron Age and began your long, silent vigil, was not made lightly. It was not the whim of a frustrated chieftain or the result of a sudden, panicked vote by the tribe. Your journey to the bog was the final, solemn conclusion of a conversation, a deep and intricate dialogue between your people and the powerful forces that govern their world. And like any highly specialized conversation, it required an interpreter. This role fell to the most revered and feared members of your society, the spiritual leaders. In the Celtic lands to the south and west, they were known as the Druids. In your Germanic tribe, they may have gone by a different name, but their function was the same. These were not simply priests who appeared on holy days. They were the intellectual and spiritual backbone of your society. They were the keepers of the sacred laws, the tribal genealogies, and the unwritten histories, all committed to memory through decades of rigorous training. They were judges who settled disputes, healers who knew the secrets of the herbs, and astronomers who charted the stars to determine the calendar for planting and harvest. This was a multidisciplinary career path of the highest order, part lawyer, part philosopher, and part divine meteorologist. Their authority often superseded that of the chieftain, for while a chief's power came from the consent of his warriors, the priest's authority came directly from the gods. Their most vital and mysterious task was divination, interpreting the will of the divine. To your people, the world was a living text, filled with omens and portents. The gods were constantly speaking, but their language was not human. It was written in the flight of a raven, the shape of a storm cloud, the rustle of wind in the sacred oaks, and the patterns of smoke rising from the ceremonial fire. The spiritual leaders were the literate few who could read this complex, natural language. They would spend hours in silent contemplation, their senses attuned to the subtle messages of the world around them. A consultation with one of them was a far more nerve-wracking affair than any modern medical appointment, as the diagnosis could be a communal curse and the prescription could be the ultimate sacrifice. The bog, as the primary gateway to the other world, was their most important text. They would study the shifting mists, the strange, dancing lights of the willow, the wisp, and the eerie silence of the dark water. They listened for the voice of the water in its stillness. They sought meaning in the way a ritually thrown branch would float or sink. Roman writers like Caesar and Tacitus, who observed your cultures from a safe and often biased distance, would later write sensationalized accounts of these practices. They described sinister priests in dark groves, presiding over huge, terrifying human sacrifices, most famously in giant, man-shaped wicker constructions set ablaze. This is the source of a long and heated academic debate. How much of this was objective reporting, and how much was anti-barbarian propaganda designed to make your people seem savage and justify Roman conquest? The truth, as you would have known, it was likely quieter, more intimate, and in some ways, more terrifying. The decision about your fate probably wasn't made in a spectacular, fiery display. It was likely reached after a long period of quiet observation and deep meditation by a figure like Morwen, the elder who guided you. She would have seen the signs of the gods' displeasure, a blight on the crops, sickness in the livestock, the defeat of a raiding party, and turned to the bog for answers. The decision was not an act of cruelty, but the result of a terrifying diagnosis. The world was out of balance, and the priest had identified the only cure. Imagine the immense burden carried by these individuals to be the one who must approach the chieftain and declare that the whispers from the water demand a price, a specific price. To know that your interpretation of a pattern of ripples or the cry of a marsh bird would lead to the selection of a human messenger, it was a weight of responsibility that is almost impossible for the modern mind to comprehend, but for them, it was a sacred duty, the core of their function in the world. Once the need for a sacrifice was determined and the messenger chosen, these same spiritual leaders would preside over the ritual itself. They were the masters of ceremony. They knew the correct purifying herbs to use, the sacred words to chant, the right way to prepare the final meal, and the proper, respectful way to guide a soul across the threshold. Every action in your final hours, from the weaving of the cord to the seating of your body in the bog, was a carefully choreographed step in a sacred dance, a dance whose steps were known only to them. Your calm acceptance of your fate was, in part, a testament to their authority and the profound trust your people placed in their wisdom. They were the guides, and you were the willing traveler, trusting that they knew the map. Your journey into the bog was not an accident or a punishment in a legal sense. It was the final, logical execution of a divine verdict, as read and interpreted by the most learned and powerful members of your tribe. While you lie in the timeless, silent peace of the bog, a different story unfolds in the world you left behind. It is the story of Turan, your chieftain, the man whose authority, in the end, confirmed the verdict of the priests. To understand the full picture of your sacrifice, we must step away from your quiet resting place and into his world, a world not of serene acceptance, but of constant, grinding pressure, where power is a precarious and heavy burden. His life, in many ways, is the stark opposite of your final fate. Yet the two are inextricably linked. Turan wakes in the same longhouse as the rest of his kin, but his sleeping platform is larger, raised slightly higher off the earthen floor, and piled more thickly with wolf and bear furs. He is closer to the warmth and light of the central hearth, a physical representation of his central place in the tribe. Around him are the symbols of his status, a finely crafted sword with a hilt of polished antler, a drinking horn tipped with silver, and a shield bearing the emblem of his clan. But these are not just possessions, they are tools of his trade, symbols of a power he must actively maintain every single day. His morning ritual involves fastening a heavy, twisted ring of gold around his neck. This is his torque, the ultimate emblem of his rank. It gleams in the firelight, a dazzling symbol of wealth, authority, and divine favor. But this eccentric and beautiful object is also a yoke. Its considerable weight is a constant, physical reminder of the burdens he carries, the welfare of the tribe, the success of the harvest, the loyalty of his warriors, and the appeasement of the gods. Heavy is the neck that wears the torque, and Turan feels its weight in every decision he makes. His authority is not absolute. He is not a king who rules by divine right from a distant palace. He is a chieftain whose power is rooted in a culture of gift-giving and reciprocity. To be a leader is to be generous. His position is secure only as long as he can provide for his followers. He must host lavish feasts, distributing meat and ale to reinforce bonds of loyalty. He must reward his best warriors with armorings, weapons, and his share of any spoils from a successful raid. His longhouse is the center of the tribal economy, a place of redistribution where wealth flows in and then flows back out to his supporters. This makes him a political animal, constantly calculating. Being chieftain is a tough gig. There's no retirement plan, and your annual performance review is basically a measure of whether the tribe is prosperous or starving. Now, in the days following your journey to the bog, This pressure is immense, the harvest was poor, and the sickness has been thinning the flock of sheep. Turan's ability to provide is waning. He spends his day projecting a confidence he does not feel. He inspects the granaries, his expression carefully neutral as he notes how low the grain supplies are. He mediates a heated dispute between two families, knowing that his judgment must be perceived as both fair and strong, lest he be seen as a weak leader. He spars with his warriors, his movements powerful and sure, betraying none of the anxiety that gnaws at him. Every conversation, every gesture, is a performance designed to reinforce his authority. Adding to this pressure is the uncertain nature of his rule. Historians still debate the exact mechanisms of succession in Iron Age societies. Was chieftainship hereditary, passed from father to son like a family heirloom? Or was it elective, with the most capable warrior and charismatic leader being chosen by a council of elders? It was likely a tense combination of both. Turan may have inherited his position, but he knows it is not guaranteed. He sees the ambitious glances from his younger, stronger cousin. He hears the whispers of support for another warrior who led a particularly daring raid. He must constantly prove his worthiness to lead, for a single season of bad luck could be interpreted as a sign that the gods no longer favor him, giving his rivals the opening they need to challenge his rule. This is where his world and yours intersect with devastating clarity. When all the worldly solutions have failed, when the stores are low, the livestock is sick, and the strength of his warriors is not enough, a chieftain has one final, terrifying card to play. He must provide for his people on a spiritual level. He must petition the gods directly, offering them a gift so great, so profound, that they cannot ignore it. This is where he turns to the priests, the interpreters of the divine will. The decision to sacrifice you was, therefore, not solely a religious one. It was a deeply political act. It was the chieftain, stripped of his usual methods of maintaining power, using the ultimate tool of leadership to ensure the survival of his people. Your sacrifice was Turan's most desperate and most precious gift to the tribe alive, given to purchase the favor of the gods, and in doing so, to secure his own fragile grasp on the gold and TORC. As evening falls, Turan sits by the fire, the weight of his office pressing down on him. He has done what a leader must do. He has made the ultimate political calculation, trading one life for the potential salvation of many. From the door of his longhouse, he can see the dark expanse of the bog, now fading into the twilight. He knows you are out there, a silent testament to his heavy choice. He is the most powerful man in the tribe, but he is also a prisoner of his responsibilities, just as bound to the will of the gods and the needs of his people as the humblest farmer. You lie behind the glass, a silent figure that invites endless questions. We have explored the world that created you, the spiritual significance of the bog, the power of the priests, who interpreted its will, and the political pressures felt by the chieftain who gave the final command. But one central, haunting question remains, perhaps the most important one of all. Who were you? Why were you, specifically, the one chosen to make this final journey? The answer is the bog's most closely guarded secret, and the heart of a debate that continues to this day. You are a quiet enigma, and in that silence, several possibilities for your life story emerge. One theory, clinical and straightforward, comes from the pen of a Roman historian named Tacitus. Writing in his book Germania, he observed the customs of the tribes living beyond the Rhine and noted that they had specific punishments for specific crimes. He wrote that cowards, deserters from battle, and those deemed uncorporeal or guilty of social taboos were punished by being pressed down into the mire of the bogs under a wicker hurdle. This theory casts you as a criminal. Perhaps you were a thief caught one too many times, a murderer whose crimes stained the honor of the tribe, or a warrior who broke and ran in the heat of a skirmish. In this version of your story, your death was not a sacrifice, but an execution. You were an impurity, a stain on the community, and your submersion in the bog was a way to cleanse the tribe, to hide the shame and appease the gods who demanded social order. It's a neat explanation, one that satisfies a modern sense of justice. But does it fit you? Look closer. The evidence of your own body argues against such a simple verdict. You were not simply tossed away. You were given a carefully prepared final meal. The cord around your neck was tied with expertise, a tool of ritual, not rage. You were placed, it seems, with a degree of reverence in the water, and then there is the evidence of your hands. Archaeologists who have examined figures like you note a strange and telling detail. The hands are often smooth, the fingernails neatly trimmed and cared for. These are not the calloused, broken-nailed hands of a common farmer, a laborer, or a slave. These hands did not engage in a lifetime of hard, physical work. This curious fact casts doubt on the common criminal theory and opens the door to a far more intriguing possibility. If you were not from the bottom of your society, could you have been from the very top? This is the second theory. You were a member of the elite, a noble, or perhaps even a king. Some sagas and historical accounts tell of sacro kings who were intrinsically linked to the luck and fertility of the land. If the harvest failed or the tribe suffered defeat under their reign, the king himself was seen as having failed. His sacred luck had run out. In such a desperate time, the most powerful offering the tribe could make would be the king himself. Your death, in this scenario, was the ultimate act of political and spiritual responsibility. Being turned into a bog body is certainly a definitive form of impeachment. You could have been a chieftain like Turan, one whose luck had soured, forced to pay the price of leadership. A third possibility exists between these two extremes. Perhaps you were an outsider. In the complex web of Iron Age tribal politics, alliances were often sealed by the exchange of high-status hostages. You could have been the son or daughter of a rival chieftain, living with your tribe as a guarantee of peace if that peace was broken, or if a sacrifice was needed that could not be sourced from within the tribe. The hostage would be the logical, politically expedient choice. Your death would satisfy the gods without causing a crisis of grief or succession within the community. Or maybe your story was simpler and unluckier. You could have been a foreign traveler, a merchant, or an artisan who was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, captured and chosen as a fittingly anonymous offering to the local gods. Yet, there is a fourth theory, one that speaks directly to the serene, untroubled expression on your face. Perhaps you were not coerced at all. Perhaps you were an honored volunteer in a society that believed so deeply in the power of the bog and the necessity of sacrifice. It is conceivable that a person would willingly choose this path. You might have been a priest or a shaman in training, someone already believed to be walking the line between the worlds. You could have been a zealot, a true believer who saw this not as an end, but as a glorious transformation into a divine messenger. This would explain the lack of struggle, the careful preparation, the sense of ceremony. You weren't a victim of your community. You were its greatest champion, the one who bravely stepped forward and took the idea of giving back to a whole new level. So, who were you? A criminal, a king, an outsider, or a volunteer? The truth is, we may never know. And the beauty of your mystery is that you could be any or all of them. The categories may have been more fluid in your time than we can imagine. Perhaps you were a deposed noble, making you both elite and, in a sense, a criminal against the new order. The final answer rests with you, locked away behind your peaceful, leathery expression. You are a mirror, reflecting all the complex facets of your society's views on justice, power, and faith. Your identity is the bog's last and most personal secret. And so, our long journey through the mists of the Iron Age comes to an end, not in a smoky longhouse or a silent bog, but here, in the hushed, climate-controlled quiet of a modern museum. Here you are. After the theories, the debates, and the speculation, we are left with the undeniable, tangible truth of you, resting peacefully behind a pane of glass. You are the final page of the story, the silent messenger who has finally completed your journey, not to the other world, but to this one. To look upon you is to complete a circle that began with a solemn walk across a wooden trackway 2.5 millennia ago. The experience of meeting you face to face is unlike looking at any other artifact. The display cases nearby hold pottery, bronze brooches, and the rusted heads of axes. They are fascinating objects, but they remain objects, impersonal fragments of a lost time. You are different. To look at your face is to have a deeply personal, human encounter across a vast and silent ocean of time. The faint lines around your closed eyes, the gentle curve of your lips, the texture of your leathery skin, these are not the work of an artist. They are the authentic traces of a life. You are not a representation of the Iron Age. You are a person who lived it, and in that, you hold a unique and irresistible power. You have become a silent global ambassador for your people. You are, for many, the single human face of this entire epic of history. People travel thousands of miles, stand in quiet lines, just to spend a few moments in your presence. They come to see a bog body, an archaeological curiosity, but they leave having met a person. Your serene, enigmatic presence has done more to communicate the reality of your world than any textbook or documentary ever could. You are the bridge, the tangible link that makes the abstract concept of the past feel immediate, personal, and profoundly real. Your face, so perfectly preserved, has become a canvas for our own modern contemplation. Academics and philosophers debate the meaning of your expression. Is it truly one of peace and willing acceptance, or do we, as modern observers, project that narrative onto you because it is more comforting than the alternative? Are we seeing tranquility? Or are we simply seeing the natural relaxation of facial muscles in death, preserved by a chemical fluke? Your face challenges us to consider how we interpret the past and how much of ourselves we see reflected in its silent figures. You are a quiet testament to the fact that history is not just a collection of facts, but an ongoing dialogue between the past and the present. This dialogue raises gentle, but important ethical questions. You are not a statue, you are human remains, and so, your very presence in this gallery is part of a quiet, ongoing discussion about how we treat our ancestors. Is it right to display a person for public view? In your case, the overwhelming sense is one of profound respect. You are not presented as a morbid spectacle or a gruesome horror. You are presented with dignity, as a teacher, a messenger from a world we could not otherwise touch. The quiet, contemplative atmosphere of this room is not one of a freak show, but of a shrine. By looking at you with empathy and wonder, we are not exploiting you. We are honoring the life you lived and the incredible journey you have taken. We are, in our own secular, modern way, ensuring that your sacrifice continues to have meaning. You are the voice from the peat. Though you have been silent for centuries, you speak to us. You speak of a world where the boundary between the natural and the supernatural was porous, where gods whispered in the rustling of reeds. You speak of the immense power of community, of beliefs that could bind people together so tightly that they would offer their most precious gifts to ensure the survival of the tribe. You speak of the eternal human condition of life, of faith, of fear, and of the search for meaning in the face of an uncertain world. Your final purpose, it turns out, was not to deliver a message to the gods below. It was to deliver a message to us, and as we stand here, in the quiet of this room, we are listening. And now, the journey is over. The lights in the museum are dimming. The last of the visitors have gone home, leaving you to your quiet, peaceful rest. The story has been told, and all the questions and wonderings can now soften and fade, like ripples on the dark water of the bog. Allow your mind to drift away from the past, away from the smoke of the longhouse and the chill of the mist. Let the gentle weight of sleep begin to settle over you, as soft and as comforting as a thick, woolen blanket on a cold night. There are no more mysteries to solve, no more debates to ponder. There is only the here and now, the safety of your room, the steady, rhythmic sound of your own breathing. Feel the tension release from your shoulders, your arms, your hands. Your own hands can relax completely, knowing their work for the day is done. Imagine the deep, quiet stillness of the bog, not as a place of sacrifice, but as a place of immense, ancient peace. A place where time slows to a near stop, where all is silent and calm. Let that profound stillness seep into you. The world outside, with all its noise and hurry, can fade away completely. It cannot touch you here, in this quiet space. You are perfectly safe, perfectly still, and perfectly at ease. Think of the soft, green sphagnum moss, a vast, gentle carpet cushioning the world. Let your own bed feel as soft and supportive, holding you in a gentle embrace. The story is finished, but the feeling of peace it has brought can remain. It can be a quiet anchor for your mind as you drift deeper and deeper into a restful, restorative sleep. Every breath you take is a soft, gentle wave, carrying you further away from waking thought and closer to the shores of your own peaceful dreams. You are home. You are safe. You are ready now to simply let go. You've reached the end of another cozy nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.